Feelings, the world of feelings. It's good to feel, it's hard to feel. I don't want to feel, I want to feel something else. Let's get into the world of feelings and the complexity and some insights about trusting feelings and not trusting feelings. Back in the day, I was born in 1977. That's when Star Wars came out. And I was a big Star Wars fan back as a kid. I had the Millennium Falcon and all the figurines. And I still love the Star Wars saga, even though some people hate on the new stuff. I think it's fantastic. All this to say that there's that quintessential moment in Star Wars when Obi-Wan's voice comes through Luke's intuition, I think it is, his ears, as he's about to take the fighter jet and blow up the Death Star. And Obi-Wan says, "Trust your feelings, Luke." And Luke's like, "What? What is that?" And Obi-Wan's like, "Trust your feelings." He takes a breath and he goes in and saves the day, right? So it's good to trust your feelings, I would say, generally. Now, here's the thing that I want to talk about in today's episode, is that there are absolutely important exceptions to not trust our feelings. So, blessed Obi-Wan, my salutations and I offer my condolences. I offer my forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness in my missteps here, dear Obi-Wan. It's not always good to trust your feelings, because trusting your feelings, if your feelings are based in a way of having you stay the way that you are, you won't get to how you want to be. So, for example, I'll give you some examples from my life and from other people's lives that I've known and worked with. Sometimes our judgment of other people, and if we're aware of feeling judgmental, great. There's usually something behind that is like an insecurity that drives the judgment most of the time. There's other possibilities too, but that's the main one for most people. That if I'm aware of my judgment and I don't do something about it, that judgment of other people will actually stop me from getting what I want. Because our judgment of other people usually is an expression of a limited belief that we have about the world. For example, I can't be like that. Like maybe, again, in my family, it was judging. One of the main things that we did was judge wealthy people, and they would, my parents actually the whole family would see a fancy car or a big house and be like, "Oh, look at their fancy schmancy, life and world or whatnot." And the judgment clearly was hinged on this belief that we couldn't have that, or that they couldn't have that, right? So it's not always good to trust our feelings. Look at what the feelings are. I think what Obi-Wan really meant, or George Lucas in this case, was trust your intuition. I'm going to create another video on intuition because I think that is actually one of the pillars of leading a successful life, is strengthening our relationship to our intuition. Now, this audio is about feelings. So let's talk more about feelings. I gave you one example of judgment against others, and that actually being a projection of something that we feel like we can't have because it's a limiting belief, right? There are also other examples of how our feelings might have us feel afraid or anything fear-based. Jealousy was one example. There could be stress is another example. Should you trust good to be aware of that you're feeling stressed, but so that we can do something about it. But not to trust our feelings and then take action based on those fear-based feelings. That's why awareness is also one of the pillars, if not the pillar, of any kind of transformation or growth in one's life. Because if I'm not aware of, in this case, how I'm feeling or what the thoughts are that are driving my feelings, then I can't shift them into a way that's going to produce the results that I want. I use this quote a lot. A dear teacher who passed away recently, Bob Proctor, when I first started studying with him, he said that something that really caught my ear, and I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. He said, if you want to know how you're thinking, look at your results. He actually said, I'll tell you how you're thinking if I can see your results, right? Fascinating that our thoughts create results in our lives. The same is true with feelings. However we feel will be reflected in the quality of our relationships and the quality of our circumstances. And I'm talking about career, job, friends, romantic partners, hookups, all the things, right? Our thoughts and our feelings are reflected by who is around us. Now, here's another example. We might have the feeling of desire because we're lonely and we want to connect with somebody. And so we go out in the world and we make these connections, but because we're so lonely and we make these choices based on that fear-based feeling, the loneliness, we likely, if we're that desperate, if we're super lonely, and we look to get that fulfilled by connecting with somebody else, which, hey, that's a great thing to do. I'm not dogging on it. But if we only rely on other people to have us feel better about something that's inside of ourselves and trust our feelings, I'm lonely, I need to connect with somebody. It's important to bring the nuance of, am I lowering my standard? Am I sacrificing my dignity to hang out with these people just so I feel less lonely? So it's great to be aware and not necessarily to trust our feelings. What I would recommend is be discerning about our feelings. Okay, I'm feeling lonely. What are some things that I can do to remedy that? Okay, great. There's a million things out there that I could do, right? Connection is probably the ultimate antidote to loneliness, right? And meaningful connection. So it takes courage and it takes some vulnerability and it takes some, discernment to find out how we get meaningful connection without sacrificing really important aspects of ourselves, like our dignity, our self-respect, our integrity, right? All of those pieces. And so great to do things outside of ourselves, in this example of loneliness, but even better to do something within ourselves, meaning something for us that doesn't rely on the outside world. Now, what could that be, you might ask? Well, here are the things that I do when I'm feeling lonely. And I do. I'm a celibate monk. I'm very fulfilled and happy in my life. I want and I choose and I decide and I take actions to feel more and more fulfilled and more joyful. And I have moments and days even when I'm just kind of feeling frumpy, And loneliness is one of those. This came up, by the way, even when I was in a romantic relationship in the past. So it's not like just because I'm a celibate monk, I feel lonely. No, this is, I am currently very in touch with my human condition and I navigate it through a path of progress, right? So when I'm feeling lonely, here are the things that I do for myself. Number one, I focus on nutrition. Yeah. Number two, I focus on sleep. Am I well rested? Because I've learned through doing lots of my own personal transformation work, which I'm still engaged in, that if I'm not like sleeping well or eating well, I'm not well nourished, that's a foundation for me. And I can feel extra frumpy if I'm not taking good care of myself, right? So I'll look at my nutrition, my sleep, and then I'll look at like the basics of like, do I just need to spend time with either someone else, A, or by myself, B? Because I find paradoxically, sometimes when I'm lonely, I'm not connected to myself. Now, all of us have different ways to get connected to ourselves. My personal favorite is sitting in stillness and silence and not doing anything. If I'm not doing enough meditation, I call that meditation. I'm not doing anything in it, so it's hard to say that it's meditation because meditation is usually like practicing like mindfulness and becoming aware of my thoughts. I'm taking on a tangent here. Roll with me. This is some content of tangents that I'm weaving together. So when I'm sitting, I'm not doing anything. A lot of people consider meditation a mantra or breath work or mindfulness, or it's like work. For me, it's not that anymore. I just adore sitting in silence and stillness. And if I'm not doing that enough or on a regular enough basis, if I'm traveling or working or leading workshops or supporting workshops, that's reflected to me that I feel insecure with myself and anxious. So for me, the best thing for me to connect myself is doing the stillness and silence. For a lot of people I know it's morning walks. For some people I know it's journaling. For some people it's night walks. For some people it's just like laying in bed, listening to music for a second, right? Whatever we do to connect with ourselves, sometimes the loneliness can be solved per se or navigated through the outside world. And I would say if you go to the inside world, your chances of feeling less lonely are infinitely more likely. All right. So all this to say, trust your feelings and don't trust your feelings. You could even say discern your feelings. So Obi-Wan, not quite right. George Lucas. Trust your intuition. I'll post something else here on intuition. Love being with you, love sharing with you, and all my best.